So it's kind of like just eating the middle out of an Oreo. I've got a junk journal tutorial for 2020 for you, and that doesn't mean it's a disaster. In fact, I'm showing you how to use embroidery in your junk journal, not just on fabric, but on paper. Also, sneak peek of the week is back. I'm showing you all my fun vintage finds. Here we go, y'all. Well, hello and welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. My name is Melissa and I am so glad you're here today. We are in week 2 of My Heart of Thanksgiving. It is a faith journaling event that we do on Instagram and we are having so much fun. I would love it if you jumped in and joined us. You can go to pinkpaperpeppermints.com and sign up for free and get a starter kit in your email and join us. So this is my journal for the event and I showed it to you last week, and this on the side is what's called Chicken Scratch Embroidery, and it's an embroidery style that developed in, well, to be honest, I think it developed before the 30s, but it got named kind of Depression lace in the 30s, and it's because, as you can see here, you can create kind of a lace look on gingham. So my understanding is in the 30s that became a popular way to make gingham look a little prettier, and it was very inexpensive. All you needed was a little bit of white embroidery thread. So when I showed you that, everyone was really interested in learning how to do it. So I'm going to show you some fun ways to use this in your junk journal. So this is a vintage apron that I picked up at an estate sale, and it has the chicken scratch on it. And you can see basically the white thread combined with the white squares of the gingham makes this beautiful lace look. And this is another vintage apron that I picked up at a thrift store, and here they've just done giant cross stitches and they've attached some rickrack with little French knots, which I think is just so beautiful. And that's another way chicken scratch is done, just with little cross stitches, and I'm going to show you some more about that later. So gingham comes in all different sizes. You can get gingham that's printed, you can get little tiny checks, you can get really large checks like that apron that I showed you. And I would say look for it at thrift stores and estate sales, because that's where I find most of my vintage scraps. And then this is the gingham paper from my current collection, My Story, My Song, and it's what we're using for My Heart of Thanksgiving. And it's kind of a larger gingham, and I'm going to show you how to do some chicken scratch on it in a little while. Now this is a little cottage pattern that I designed for my blog quite a while ago, and I've updated it, and I'm going to send it out to my newsletter subscribers. So if you would like to get this pattern, be sure and sign up for my newsletter. I will link it below, or you can just go to pinkpaperpeppermints.com if you would like to get this pattern and sign up for my newsletter. So this pattern is what I'm going to show you how to do, and I have printed some of my gingham on fabric paper, and I'm not going to go into details on how to do that because the lovely lady on the screen, Lisa, she's on my design team, and she actually did a great demo on how to print on fabric and how to create things with fabric paper, so you have to go and watch that. This is some embroidery floss. It's 6-strand embroidery floss, and I'm sure you probably already have some, but if you don't, it's easy to find at craft stores. And that is what I use. I just usually use the whole 6 strands, but you can also go down to 2 strands if you want it to be a little bit more delicate. And this is craft thread. And I noticed on some of my vintage aprons, like this one, that it looks like that's what they've used, especially for the white. They've used a craft thread or a pearl cotton thread instead of embroidery floss. So you can use either one of those. I've used all different things to try it, and they all come out looking really cute. So this is a stitch guide. I also will send this with the pattern to my newsletter subscribers, and this just basically is going to detail out the different stitches that there are available. And the ones that I'm going to show you today, there are so many stitches, but I'm going to show you the basic ones today, and it's just a good guide because at first it can be a little confusing about what color thread to use on what color square. And here is the little cottage pattern, and there's a key at the bottom to tell you what the stitches are and how to do them. And we're going to go over that today as well. So the first stitch we're going to learn is called the double cross stitch, and it's basically like a little asterisk. So you're going to do an X first, and if you've done any cross stitching, then you know how to do this. It's pretty simple. You're just going to go from corner to corner and do a little X like this, and then you're going to add a horizontal stitch and a vertical stitch to create that little asterisk. And that is used for several different things. What we're going to use it for first is an outline stitch. And when you outline, you use the dark color of the gingham that you're working on and you work in the white square. So there's our little asterisk stitch, and you can take a look at the pattern here, and there's a key that shows you the name of each stitch and the symbol that I've used, and it shows you what color thread to use and what square to work on, so you don't have to worry. It's a really simple pattern. And if you don't want to do a design, you can also just do these little lace stitches that I'm about to show you just randomly, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a little while. So I'm just going to fill in those white squares with my dark pink thread and doing the double cross stitch to create the outline, and there I have the outline for the roof. And all I need to do now is do the sides and the door and the window, and I'm going to show you the lace stitch next though. We're going to go ahead and go to the lace stitch, and you remember that is this white stitch that looks like lace using the white squares. And so it's super simple. It starts with a running stitch, which is just a straight stitch, and we're going to go across the medium pink squares, and that's depending on the gingham that you're using. If you're using blue, you do the medium blue squares, and you're just going to go straight across and then straight down. So you're going to follow the pattern if you have a pattern. Otherwise you can do this individually, and I'm going to show you that later. And so you go across and then you work down, and then you get these little crosses. They look like little crosses with that white square right in the middle, and that's where you're going to do the woven or the lace stitch. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a little circle, and you can see here on the pattern those 4 straight stitches with the circle in the middle. That shows you where you're going to do your lace stitch. So what you want to do is come up with your needle under one of the straight stitches in your little set of 4 straight stitches, and then you're going to weave your needle underneath those 4 stitches in a circular fashion. So it's really simple. It looks complicated, but once you do it a couple of times, it's actually really fun and relaxing to do this. I love doing a whole piece of gingham with this lace stitch. And so you're going to go around twice, and when you're finished, just tuck your needle back under that stitch and then come up under the next stitch, and you're just going to fill in your whole set of those little crosses that you made to create that lace pattern. And so here's my roof. I've finished it off, and you can leave it like this, or you can then go in and do white double cross stitches on those dark pink squares in between the circles, and that's on the pattern. But you could also just leave it like this if you like the way that looks. So here's my completed little cottage. You can see I finished the outline. I finished putting the little double cross stitches in between those lace stitches. And then I did my door and my window. And you can see how pretty that looks. I think it's just amazing how it's gingham and then suddenly it looks like a piece of lace. So now I want to show you how you can do this on paper, and it's so much fun. And I wanted to tell you too that you don't necessarily need to do a pattern. What I did on the spine of my journal here was just my favorite part of the stitch, the little lacy part on the white squares. So it's kind of like just eating the middle out of an Oreo, just the favorite parts, and I just did them randomly. So here is my regal turkey, which if you got my newsletter last week, you know that I called him that, and I just think he's really cool. He's in this Heart of Thanksgiving page wrap set, and I will link that below, and I think he looks wonderful with that vintagey patchwork paper. I am making a pocket page here. I'm adding some ledger paper to the back of that patchwork paper, and I'm going to do some stitching on this gingham paper for the pocket, and this is premium presentation paper, which is thicker than regular paper and a little lighter than cardstock, which makes it perfect for stitching. And when you're stitching on paper, what I found really helps is to pre-punch your holes, which is what I'm doing here. I've laid my paper on a piece of fabric so that I have a soft surface, and I'm just going through and randomly punching the holes. Not really randomly, I know the stitch that I want to do, but I'm putting that stitch randomly on the gingham. So we're just doing the lace stitch. So I'm going to do the little straight stitches, and then I'm going to do the circle stitch. Now what I did differently here is I'm not going to do all the straight stitches across and then all of the up and down ones. I'm going to do each little section of the 4 stitches at the same time because they're so small and they're not all lined up. It's just easier to do it that way. And you can see that I'm just going in and doing the circle here now, and you can see how pretty that looks on the paper. And this took me maybe 10 minutes to do, if that. So it's just such a fun way to make your junk journal page just have so much texture and depth to it and just look so pretty. Now, once that's finished, if you want to, you can put a little tape on the back if you've got any loose strings. I didn't do that. I thought it would be just fine. And so now I wanted to stitch a border of lace across the top is what I thought. But then when I got to the sewing machine, I thought it would look much better on the bottom. And it is some eyelet lace that literally came while I was working on this page. The doorbell rang and it was the mailman, and I was pretty excited about that. So I love that eyelet with the gingham paper. I think it looks so pretty. And then of course the eyelet lace sticking out of the bottom of your journal just looks beautiful too. So once I finished my pocket, I decided I wanted to put some giant journaling tags in those pockets, and I decided to use the ones from the My Story, My Song collection, and I wanted to use some little pieces of word art. So I'm typing those on a blank flashcard from the flashcard set, and I really like the manila look of those flashcards, so that's why I'm typing on them. They look really good with my orange typewriter ribbon, which I will link that for you below. I found a shop that sells colored typewriter ribbon for vintage typewriters, and it is awesome. And so you can see I've got that all typed out here. I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it, so I did it 2 different ways. And then I cut this little owl out from a card from the ephemera set from this collection. And I'm going to attach him here, and I've got the phrase, and I'm going to cut that out and glue it next to him. And then on the other tag, I just typed out our verse from the devotional that we're studying this week and got that all ready, and I'm going to add some ribbon to that. So I'm just going to cut out all the words and glue them on, and I'm going to add a little bit of pin work to it to highlight it, and you can see that I've done that here. And I used brown thread and just stitched around the edge of the tag, and I cut the owl off on the side. I kind of anchored him to the side and cut him off there, and added a silk leaf and some ribbon to top off my tag. And I cut these tags, I probably cut about 1 inch off of them because I'm using a B6. They were a little too tall. So you can do that. You can just cut the bottoms off if you want to use them in a smaller journal. And I did the same thing on this. I added some brown sewing around the edges and some ribbon and a silk leaf to complete that tag. So I think you can see how pretty that looks and how easy it is, and I hope that you will try doing it, if not on fabric, on paper. Well, I wanted to show you one more little trick. If you're not into embroidery, this is another way that you can get the chicken scratch look on your gingham paper, is just to use a pen and mimic the stitches with a pen, and I think it looks just as cute. Okay, how about Peek of the Week now, which is where I show you what my recent vintage favorite finds are. And I've been thinking of changing the name to Peek of the Random Video because I often forget to do it. But we're doing it today, and what I'm going to show you is some of my fun chicken scratch embroidery patterns that I got. This one is a simplicity pattern, and I was really excited when I got it because I didn't really look at what was inside. I just liked the way the pattern looked on the outside, and then when I opened it up, it had all of these color sheets of pattern, which I just think are so pretty. I mean, I could just frame these and hang them on my wall in my studio, but I'm really excited to try some of them too. They are so pretty, and especially I found there was a poinsettia in this set, which I didn't really see when I purchased the pattern, but I really want to do that for something for Christmas. So this is the other one I got. This is called the ABCs of Embroidery, and it only has a few chicken scratch patterns in it. It's mostly embroidery techniques, but it's just so beautiful. The images and the graphics on the inside are so pretty. I just love every little bit of it. And these are the patterns, and they're really simple because they're just little X's. So they're super easy to do on gingham. I love the squirrel and the bird. I really cannot wait to try some of these. And it has the whole alphabet on this page, which I think would be so fun to use on the next project that I'm going to show you, which is this little angel. I think she is so cute. She is from somewhere in the 80s, I think. She's a little Christmas ornament angel. And I was thinking what I could do is use gingham on her skirt instead of the muslin, and then I could try some of these chicken scratch patterns on her little skirt. So I'm super excited to try that. And if you want to see the finished product, make sure you're following me on Instagram at Pink Paper Peppermints, because I'll post the finished product there. I will also link you to these shops in the description below. So if you liked this video, I think you will love this journal weaving video. I show you all kinds of fun tips and techniques for weaving in your journal. And if you've always thought weaving seemed really complicated, I really make it simple, and we do it in a really small size, so you can do a whole weaving in about an hour. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun, and I hope you have a week filled with peace and grace, and I will see you next time here on Pink Paper Peppermints.